Okay guys, today we're going to keep talking about heavy duty emissions. This right here is what they call a diesel exhaust fluid doser. This will actually inject diesel exhaust fluid, urea some people call it, into the exhaust stream once it has left the DPF. And this is there to reduce the NOx and the exhaust, which is part of the system catalyst reduction. So so we're going to talk about this little guy right here. All it is a simple little coil. It usually comes on when it's commanded by the ECM. This is what I call generation 1, which is 2150, 2250, which that refers to the strategy or the ECM or the control module software package. 2150, 2250, you know, they have a little bit of difference, but they share a lot of the same components. This is one of them. This is the def dozer that's mounted in the decom tube. One thing that's always a pain is these little bolts that hold it in. There's 3 of them. They always break off, or they tend to want to break off. And if they break off in the decom tube, they're a little hard to get out because they're made out of stainless. If you don't know that, know that. They're stainless. This is where the line that supplies the DEF fluid from the DEF pump, I'll make a video separate for that, comes into here at 130 psi. It's pulsed by the coil and it sprays a fine mist. There's a test that will you can see the mist, the tip. It's just like an injector tip. Think of it like a fuel injector. The mist gets in the stream. It lowers the NOx. One of the biggest problems that we have is they build up. There's a gasket that goes here, but they build up with DEF fluid that crystallizes. And believe it or not, it actually has been proven that you can have a DEF doser valve that's run maybe 6 months, and you'll test it and it looks good visually. But if you go through the trouble, and I highly recommend you guys, if you guys are doing this kind of work, get you a measuring device, a barrette, or you know, one of the graduated measuring. They make them in plastic. Don't get the glass ones. They make them in plastic, and you can as you do the procedure, it's going to tell you to turn it on through this one Cummins Insight. It'll tell you to turn it on. You're going to take a measurement. Well, I can tell you this. I've seen them where we'll do that test, and then it looks good, but we'll simply wash this with warm water, preferably distilled water. Warm is the key. Warm. Distilled water. We'll clean this off. We'll brush it, and guess what? We'll get an improvement on the volume that it sprays. So this is one of those things. It gets installed. Nobody ever does no maintenance because it lives in a terrible spot. But if you can keep up with these, it can save yourself a lot of trouble. These 2 other lines are coolant lines. They come in here and they circulate to try to help this live where it lives in that hot exhaust decom tube. And these are coolant lines. And one thing that happens is if you pressure test a truck that has regeneration, I highly recommend that you use one that runs off shop air that can provide continuous pressure to the cooling system. Because if you use a hand one, you can pump it up, it goes down, and you pump it up and it goes down, and it's not the same. If you have one of them shop air ones, you put it on, you set it to the maximum pressure. You got a 7-pound cap, you put 7 pounds, which I think is what everybody runs now. And if it's a 15-pound cap, you go to 15 pounds. And you watch. And these lines, they do tend to leak. They will leak, and they can be a source of low coolant codes that no one seems to be able to figure out, because it leaks onto a hot decom tube, and the decom tube is going to vaporize it. I've said it before. Quiz: is coolant flammable? Yes or no? The answer is yes. Coolant, engine coolant, can become flammable and it can ignite. So be careful. Keep an eye on that. Sometimes you do start getting, especially on the older trucks, you'll get some leakage past the seal here on the hose, and you'll get a big old buildup of crystallization right there. So anyway, Once again, this is part of our continuing conversation of heavy duty emissions, big truck. And this is a peek at one of the little parts that makes it all happen. The diesel exhaust fluid dozer valve that mounts on top of the decom tube. Hey, leave me a comment, tell me if you like what I'm doing, and if you do, I'm going to keep going with some other parts that are part of the equation for this system. Appreciate you watching.